Lie, lie, la 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 lie, 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 la 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 lie, lie. La la lie, 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 la la lie, lie, la la lie. Lie, lie, la 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 lie, 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 la 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 lie, lie. La la lie, 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 la la lie, lie, la la lie. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen lie lie la 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 lie 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 la 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 lie lie la la lie 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 la la lie lie la la lie Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim lie lie la 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 lie 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 la 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 lie lie la la lie 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 la la lie lie la la lie Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh lie lie la 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 lie 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 la 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 lie lie la la lie 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 la la lie lie la la lie Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil bein chodesh lechol hamavdil bein kodesh lechol Eliyahu hanavi Eliyahu hatishbi Eliyahu 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 hagiladi bimhera v'yameinu yavo eleinu Mashiach ben David Mashiach ben David Eliyahu hanavi Eliyahu hatishbi Eliyahu 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 hagiladi Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov indeed. Bruchim Habaim. Welcome all to what appears to be kind of barely an average Temple B'nai Abraham sanctuary crowd. Right? Just as separate Shabbat candles of joy and anticipation eventually come together in the bright yet bittersweet light of the Havdalah candle, we come together this evening to celebrate the tenure of Rabbi Clifford M. Colwin, our spiritual leader and great friend. So to begin, our president, Dr. Bruce Green, presides admirably over flourishing and exciting times here at Temple B'nai Abraham, and we admire greatly his ongoing commitment to our synagogue community. I give you now our friend and president, Dr. Bruce Green.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to all of you. I am honored this evening to acknowledge the presence of a number of special guests. Firstly, three of Rabbi Coleman's closest colleagues, Rabbi Elise Frischman, Rabbi Daniel Freelander, and Rabbi Daniel Cohn. Governor Murphy and First Lady Tammy Murphy, welcome. Representative Mikey Sherrill, Representative Tom Malinowski, George Helmy, Chief of Staff to Governor Murphy, New Jersey State Assemblyman John McKeon, Essex County Freeholder Brendan Gill, President of the Board of Freeholders, Essex County Freeholder Pat Siebold, Livingston Mayor Al Anthony and the entire council, Rudy Fernandez, Sean Klein, Edward Meinhardt, and Michael Vieira, Montclair Mayor Robert Jackson, and Montclair Town Council Member William Herlock. Before I begin my formal remarks, I have to offer many thanks to Sisterhood, the Women's Connection, for sponsoring the wonderful reception last night prior to Shabbat services. We are most grateful to them. The invitation to this event asks us to join together to celebrate Rabbi Coleman as he moves on to his next chapter. The verb moves strikes me as appropriate. Can any of us remember Rabbi Coleman standing still? Moving, progressing, energizing, achieving, leading. Rabbi, these things you do every day. For 20 years, you have brought an incredibly positive energy to your professional life here at Temple B'nai Abraham. That leaves a great legacy. You brought purpose and meaning to your time here, and it matters. Your impact will last well beyond the dates of your tenure. Rabbi Coleman and I share a love of the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Dr. Frankl was a famous psychoanalyst, a disciple of Freud. The book describes Frankl's experiences while imprisoned at Auschwitz and the insights he gained about what drove some prisoners to strive to stay alive. Frankl, who wrote the book shortly after being liberated, concluded that meaning, a sense of purpose, makes life worth living and holding on to. Rabbi, you help to bring that meaning to us. It is very difficult to summarize our rabbi's impact. Context might help. As many of us know, Rabbi Coleman is only the fourth senior rabbi of Temple B'nai Abraham in the last 117 years. Each of your predecessors was the right rabbi for this synagogue in his time. I'd imagine it was daunting 20 years ago to look at that record and take this position. Rabbi, you more than succeeded. You have continued and enhanced this synagogue's important place in the Jewish community, locally, nationally, and internationally. Rabbi, you have been important to us, your congregation, in a great many ways. You have been our prayer leader, our comforter, our teacher, our tour guide in Israel and elsewhere, our friend, and so much more. My family and I, like many of you and your families, have truly had our lives enhanced and blessed by Rabbi Coleman. He has married us and our children. He has been at our children's B'nai Mitzvah, where he always comes up with just the right words to say to inspire and bless them. He has been there for us at times of illness and loss. Rabbi, you comforted us, you supported us, you care about us. We thank you. The symbolism of numbers is important in Judaism. I took a look at the list of spiritual leaders of Temple B'nai Abraham since the synagogue's founding in the middle of the 19th century. Rabbi Coleman's name is the 18th on that roster. 18, Chai, life. This strikes me as highly appropriate. We know that the heritage of the Jewish people is of paramount importance to Rabbi Coleman. The transmission of that heritage to the next generation and to the generations that will follow is key. Jewish family, Jewish worship, and, vitally, Jewish education lead to that transmission. I can think of no more fitting tribute to Rabbi Coleman's legacy than to support the Jewish education of our children. In that spirit, I am delighted to announce that Temple B'nai Abraham is establishing the Rabbi Clifford M. Kulwin Education Fund, whose purpose shall be to ensure that Jewish education is available and affordable to all Temple members. The fund was initiated with the final monies from the estate of Eric and Lori Ross, whose own commitment to education and personal closeness to Rabbi Coleman make this a wonderfully appropriate use of their generosity. As well, several Temple members responded enthusiastically to private appeals, and I am delighted to announce that the fund already contains nearly $750,000, well on the way to our initial goal of $1 million. But that is only an initial goal. The more we raise, the more we can reduce the cost of educating our children and ensure that Jewish education is easily accessible to every single Jewish family. We're on our way, and the generosity of all of us will be needed. If you want to make a concrete and substantial impact on Jewish life and support the congregation we all hold dear, consider a donation. Starting Monday, information about donating will be posted on our website, tbanj.org. Oh, and another thing. I said nearly $750,000. I should have said $800,000. Rabbi Coleman and Robin have informed me of their own pledge of $50,000 to the fund. Speaking for myself, and I'm sure for all of us, this is a bittersweet moment. While I know that my dear friend Rabbi Clifford Coleman will always be a part of my life, and while I know that Temple B'nai Abraham will continue to have great spiritual leadership well into the future, I am also sure that I will miss Rabbi Coleman as our synagogue's rabbi. Rabbi, Cliff, the different chapters of your life that led to this moment have made a great book so far. We wish you well. We certainly wish for you and your family that the next chapter and the chapters that will follow enhance that volume. I love you and want all the best for you. Thank you. As I mentioned before, we are especially honored this evening by the presence of Governor Phil Murphy. Because of his own close relationship with and respect for Rabbi Coleman, he and First Lady Tammy Murphy made certain they could be here. Governor, it is my personal honor to invite you to say a few words.
Wow. What a treat to be here. Good evening. I know that the day is ended, but I wanted to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Murphy can get away with that at this time. Mr. President, Dr. Bruce Green, thank you very much for your very gracious words and your very kind introduction. Rabbi Faithward Faithco, Faith Joy Dantowitz, great to be with you as always. Cantor Jessica Epstein, past President B.J. Reisberg, distinguished speakers, and I apologize in advance that we will not be able to hear the balance of the program, and we have a long-standing family commitment, so I, from the bottom of my heart, wish we could stay to hear them. To all the elected officials, the community leaders, the many faith leaders, the honored guests, and certainly the congregants of B'nai Abraham. It is a distinct honor for Tammy and me to join with you and Robin and Noah and Molly especially to celebrate the retirement of our friend Rabbi Cliff Coleman. I have one minor problem. I don't know where Cliff is. Where are you, Cliff? Oh, there you are. Okay. Pesky little detail. We couldn't find you. Now, I do have to note that Cliff is younger than I am. all of 5 days. True. Something that he is not bashful about reminding me of. So tonight we're celebrating his retirement. I'm still working. Now I get what they mean about a chosen people. And speaking of retirement, when I saw that Tom Moran was on the speaking program, Cliff, I had assumed that you had arranged a point-counterpoint debate with Tom and me on pension and health care benefits for retired public sector rabbis. Perhaps not. I spoke to Tom, and I'm going to have to hear about his remarks afterward. Seriously, though, but the thing is, Cliff, I know, as we all know, that you're not done yet. You still have much more to teach us. You still have many more inspiring words to share. You still will be a leader not just in our Jewish community, but in our state. In other words, if you think you're going to just walk out of here and do a life of leisure, you get another thing coming. I know that future work that you plan, in particular with Carlos and his team at Big Brothers and Big Sisters, will only grow your legacy. And I'm sure that Robin will appreciate your getting out of the house every once in a while. From my days as a candidate for governor, and now as governor, your guidance and friendship have meant so much to me and to us. We met many years ago, I guess at this point, through our mutual dear friend, Brendan Gill, and meeting you and Robin has been a highlight for Tammy and me, not just that moment, but the friendship we've developed these past several years. You've heard me say it many times that our Jewish community is woven tightly into our state's vibrant and brilliant tapestry, and you are one of its strongest threads. But perhaps one of the most impactful days of not just my first year plus in office, but in my life over these past many years occurred right here on October 28, 2018, the day after the horrible loss of life at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Cliff, you brought all of us together on a virtual moment's notice. We were at our daughter's parents' weekend when we heard of the awful tragedy the day before. First person I texted was Cliff, and you came back immediately and said, what if I pull a group together tomorrow? Can you make it? And needless to say, we all remember how full this sanctuary was that day. You pulled us all together for what you termed an observation of mourning and outrage. Those are two wildly juxtaposed concepts, mourning and outrage, but they made perfect sense on that day. We were outraged and continue to be at the vile hatred and anti-Semitism. We were outraged that a just God could allow this to happen in our nation, of all places, a nation predicated on the principle of religious freedom and liberty and inclusion. But we were also reminded that for us to properly mourn, we must have a sense of outrage. They are emotions that aren't alien to each other. And only a rabbi, a true teacher, could allow us the time and the opportunity and the space to explore these emotions and to corral our energy to combat hate in all of its forms. Now, Cliff, I know you ordered that there are to be no long speeches here this evening, and I will not be the one to dishonor that request. And again, I apologize in advance that we can't stay. But truly, as we have become friends, I feel that we've also sort of, in a funny way, become kind of brothers. Brothers in our pursuit of a world built on social justice, and brothers in our support of the Jewish community in this state and beyond, and for Israel and its people to live in lasting peace among other shared agendas. So in this spirit of brotherhood, I'd like to leave you this evening with words from Talmud, which could only be seen as a uniting force between the Irish and the Jewish. And I quote Talmud, "Till you are 40, there is profit in eating. From then on, drinking prospers." True. Believe me, I worked on this with Derek Roseman, and I made him go back to read it several times. I believe that was contributed by a Rabbi Murphy, In any event, may God bless you and Robin and Noah and Molly in all of your future endeavors. Thank you so much for your friendship, your support, your leadership, and please, on behalf of all of us, keep your cell phone handy. God bless you all.
Thank you, Governor. I particularly admire your last philosophical comment. Wow. Representing the too numerous to count young members of our congregation, and I do mean young, with whom Rabbi Coleman has shared many synagogue rites of passage from our early school and JLP through post-college years, we call upon Ben Epstein, one of Rabbi Coleman's most recent B'nai Mitzvah, who, as Rabbi Coleman indicated to me, has been here at Temple B'nai Abraham literally since before he was born. Ben, come on up.
First off, I have no idea how I can follow up Governor Murphy. That's something. All right. Hi. For those who may not know me, I'm Ben Epstein, and I'm happy to have been asked to say a few things about Rabbi Coleman. I am one of the nearly 1,500 bar bat mitzvahs that Rabbi Coleman has been involved with over the last 20 years. You've been a big part of my life ever since. During my years at the early school, then Hebrew school since kindergarten, then during the prep for my bar mitzvah a few months ago, annual birthday celebrations on the Bima, and more Friday night services than I can even count, some of my best memories are here with you at Temple B'nai Abraham. You have always been there for me, you have always listened to me, and you have always had time to offer words of advice, support, or a laugh. I will miss our talks, so don't be surprised if I show up on your doorstep in Montclair. Also, please keep the postcards to camp coming. And by the way, just because you won't be here, that doesn't mean that you're off the hook at all. I can't wait for a college dinner in a few years. Mazel tov and good luck, Rabbi Coleman. The Epsteins will miss you.
A next generation synagogue leader in the making. Wonderful. Okay. Rabbi Coleman's inspiring participation in the good works of our greater community has in many ways inspired our synagogue membership to meaningful community service and philanthropy as well. As head of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northern New Jersey, Carlos Laniax fortuitously spoke at Noah Colwin's high school graduation, where Cliff and Carlos first met. The rest is truly both heartening and uplifting. Carlos?
So I guess I have to follow Ben's amazing speech. I thought John Schreiber had to. Cliff, how do we begin the story? As I was framing my remarks for today, I thought back to that moment that we all met in 2011, and the words that really drove the connection point between my purpose and mission and the spirit that motivates Rabbi Coleman. America must not become a nation of onlookers, Rabbi Prince famously said. For the sake of the image, the dream, the idea, and the aspiration of America itself. He said those words shoulder to shoulder with Dr. King in 1963 in Washington, D.C. The time, I believe, has come to work together. For it is not enough to hope together. It is not enough to pray together. But we must work together. I work with kids. I'm the head of Big Brothers Big Sisters for Essex, Hudson, and Union counties. We're based just down the street in Newark. And my kids, too, have this dream. They know about it. They hear about the words. They raise their hand every single day, and they cross their heart, and they pledge allegiance to this flag of the United States of America. They know of what Prince spoke about. But yet often is the case throughout the years, they may feel that those words fall short of the promise and the aspiration of what the words mean. It may not be their reality in Newark, New Jersey, to be able to aspire to the abundance of the American dream, but for having people work towards the solution, partner with them, see them, listen to their truth, and help manifest their abundance. People like Rabbi Coleman, people like many in this congregation who step forward in the relationship with a young person just down the street. You see, I gave a speech at my alma mater, Montclair High School, and that was the theme of my speech to the graduating class. And yes, Noah was in the audience at that point, and it was about the boldness of the American dream, yet the work that is required to manifest the American dream, that we all need to work towards the solution, to be part of it. So as I gave my speech, I walked off the stage, and I couldn't leave the Montclair High School campus until Cliff walks up and introduces himself. I had never met the man. Hi, my name is Cliff. I'm the rabbi of Temple B'nai Abraham, and we need to meet. For a person I've never met before, the directness, the forthrightness, the clarity of purpose was a little jarring. Throughout the years, that direct communicative tone and style I've gotten used to. And I'll be honest with you, I've kind of called it something my wife knows at home. We're being Colwined into action. Yes, Cliff, I added an ED to your last name to be Colwined into action. But what does it mean to be Colwined into action? Many of us know. It means a random text at a random hour of the day with a question. Not really. It's a statement with a question mark at the end of it. What are you doing Sunday morning? Now, I've learned to translate Kulwinese, and that really means there's a purpose for you to be somewhere Sunday. Clear your calendar and show up! Exclamation mark. What does it mean to be Colwined into action? It means to get an email with the name of a person clearly that Cliff has just met. And he's seeing a connection point between the work and the mission of social justice in our kids and his world and his orbit. The question is, do you know him or her? If you don't, you should. I will work to make that connection happen. And this is the essence of Cliff. If you don't respond immediately, make sure you have your cell phone off because it's going to ring. And what is going to be on that voicemail are three simple words. Check your email. I've been on the receiving end of that many times. But on a more personal side, to know the essence of Cliff Colwin is to know that he prioritizes the personal as well as the professional. The personal side of things, as well as the purpose-driven motions and motivations of social justice. To know the essence of Cliff Colwin is to be brought in like family. To know the essence of Cliff Colwin is to know that he will build a bridge, he will work to build a bridge, to include you, to invite you to things, to events, to hug you and embrace you like a brother in his home, the Adirondacks, with key friends, and to really believe in you as a person. We had many meetings where the agenda items were about Big Brothers Big Sisters and how do we get more mentors for our kids and how we raise more money and all the urgency of the work, but the agenda would be derailed by Cliff's intuition. How's your mother doing? She was in the hospital the other day. Is she okay? Or more of the joke of our relationship until recently, how's your love life? The joke is on you now because I'm finally married. Shout out to my lovely wife, Amanda. They approve, right? But to all, it's a rapport, it's a back and forth. It's not only about me as a person, but of course he reciprocates and is vulnerable and open and invites you to his home on his terms. So to know the essence of Cliff Coleman is to know his wonderfully supportive wife in Robin. And to really know the essence of Robin is to understand she has a southern drawl every once in a while that comes out. And then also to admire the intellect and the unapologetic nature of her two children and his two children, Noah and Molly, who will debate at Pesach Seder at the drop of a dime, bringing their life experience with some amazing people at the table and unapologetically go toe-to-toe with some incredible folks. So it's both about getting to know Cliff as well as it is about Carlos and about fighting for social justice. So Cliff, it is a sincere honor to be here with you, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I know our work, as the governor said, has not ended. You will be continuing to help manifest the social justice, those words that Prince spoke about, that you embody, that you work towards every single day when you see a new dimension of connection to fight for those who aren't at these tables, to those who typically feel voiceless in our society. Thank you for giving them voice. Thank you for giving me this voice. Congratulations, Mazel Tov.
Our next guest may be one of the few people here this evening whose knowledge of performance art exceeds that of our own musically inclined Cliff Coleman. John Schreiber is the CEO and president of NJPAC, yet another of Cliff and Robin's important community associations. No surprise then that the Colwins and John have become such good friends. We now invite John up.
The unenviable task of following Governor Murphy, Ben, and Carlos. But I'm happy to be here to pay tribute to my rabbi. Where are you, Rabbi? There you are. Okay, great. I haven't seen so many Jews in one room since the last time the Israel Philharmonic played NJPAC. Too soon? I'm happy to be here. And Carlos said out loud a lot of the things that I feel and think about Cliff. So I want to just sort of improvise, as a good jazz musician would do, for a minute about what it means to be a rabbi. You know, in show business, we have our rabbis. You know, that person, that individual who kind of looks out for you and gives you the good advice that you need so that you don't make unnecessary mistakes. Well, I never really had a rabbi until I met you. I had a rabbi when I was a little kid growing up in Queens. His name was Albert G. Silverman. He was the scary person. He'd wear these big dark robes, and you know, when he extended his arms, I totally expected him to fly away. You know, he was an intimidating fellow. But when I got to NJPAC some years ago, Cliff did to me exactly what he did to you. It was the first time I was at NJPAC. Mark Bresson was, I'm sure you were there. It was a June meeting in 2011. Combined meeting of leadership, and Cliff was there as a member of our Council of Trustees. And at the end of the meeting, he marched right up to me and he said, "I'm Cliff Coleman, we need to get together." I didn't know who Cliff Coleman was. I didn't know why we needed to get together, but okay, you know. And a few months later, we had dinner at Samba, Cliff's favorite Argentine restaurant in Montclair. Brazilian. Oh, Brazilian, I'm sorry. Cultural illiterate that I am, right? Thanks, Rabbi. and we had 2 bottles of wine, and we talked for 4 hours, and I realized that I had made a great friend at a moment's notice, and making a dear friend late in life is unusual. It doesn't happen that often, but it happened, and I realized that I'd found my rabbi. But he wasn't just, what I discovered was that, of course, you're not just my rabbi, you're everybody's rabbi. You're the rabbi of all the congregants here. You're the rabbi of all the kids that you write notes to over the course of the summer and the ones that you follow when they go to college. You're the rabbi who advances social justice by doing programs in Newark and the Oranges so that folks who don't have much can get some more. You're the rabbi who hawks elected officials like the mayor or the governor when you believe that legislation that's important for the well-being of our community needs to get passed. You are a rabbi in the broadest and the best sense of the word because you care so deeply about so many things, and because you're such a great communicator, and because your energy is tireless, you are remarkably effective. And that effectiveness is not ending with your tenure here at the synagogue. You will be more effective in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. You are a young man, and you have many, many years of good deeds to do. And the other thing that I love about you is your optimism. You are so wise, and yet in some ways you are so remarkably naive in your optimism. And what a blessing that is. Couldn't we all use more of that, don't you think? So, I love you. Godspeed to you. I can't wait to see you in the Adirondacks or in Brazil or you name it. And of course to your co-pilot, Robin, who loves you unabashedly and unconditionally and takes the piss out of you on a regular basis. As she must, because often you are so full of yourself, you know. And your children, who are fearless. I've seen them at Passover. It's a joy to behold. Anyway, a life well lived and so much more to be done. I love you.
Well put. Just 2 bottles of wine? Okay. All right. Cliff and Robin's substantial involvements in Montclair, where Noah and Molly were raised, have borne much fruit for Temple B'nai Abraham and our greater communities. One such Montclair relationship, esteemed among many, is represented here tonight as we welcome Tom Moran, the editorial page editor of the Star-Ledger and longtime Kulwin family friend, to be here and say a few words this evening. Tom?
Thanks very much, Cliff. I'm so honored that you asked me to do this. I really am. And I'm glad to be back here. I've been in the other room talking politics several times out here, and I have to say, I speak at a lot of community groups, that it's always been such fantastic discussions in there. And the questions are so informed, intellectually open, and it's just been a delight, and I look forward to it again. Whoever your successor is, you got to put in a good word for me. Get some more. I was at dinner last night with a few of my sisters, and mentioned today that I was going to put on a suit and tie, which is rare for me, and say a few words about a good friend. And my sister Monica asked, "Who is it?" I said, "Cliff Coleman, my rabbi." She said, "You're Catholic." I said, "I never had a priest. My priests were like John's rabbi." Then she said, "How'd he die?" I said, "Close. It's retirement. So about Cliff, it's been a lot of fun to think about what makes Cliff Cliff, what makes him so special. Lots of stuff. Our friendship began when he submitted an op-ed essay to the Star-Ledger many years ago, where I run the opinion section, and it was just beautiful. So I called to meet him for breakfast. I don't know if I followed up with all these annoying texts or anything that I hear you do, with a mind to recruit him as free labor. I found a lot more than that. The free labor, as anybody who reads the Ledger know, Cliff is one of our regulars, but I found a lot more than that. About 5 years ago, I faced the crisis of my life, and I found myself picking up the phone to call Cliff for advice. And I'm amazed by that when I look back, because I really didn't know him that well then. But I knew in my gut he would help, that he would take some of the weight off my back and help me carry it. Cliff told me to come over. We sipped some coffee. He gave me great advice that I knew was right as soon as I heard it, and it really did help. I'm guessing, in fact, I'm certain I'm not the only one in this room who has had that kind of experience, who has leaned on Cliff like that. He has a surplus of wisdom and a heart of gold, and you can see that from a distance. So now we're close friends. We've gone way beyond breakfast. Now we eat and drink bottles of wine at restaurants and in his house. We still do get breakfast, and I do want to say a word about that, because like all of us, the man does have his flaws. Cliff is an unbelievable slob before 9 o'clock in the morning. He arrives, it's shocking. He arrived after his workout before there were no combs and razors involved in his life at that stage. Usually in a stained t-shirt. The man lifts his coffee to ask for more, and people throw quarters. Cliff, you could do better than that. You know, there is such a thing as being too relaxed. And Robin, the tenderness you show Cliff that has been referred to, it's touching. The unconditional love, but that too can go too far. Intervene. I want to get back to Cliff's wonderful writing, which, you know, is probably the area I could speak to. But wait, Cliff told me to keep this really short, so should I stop before talking about your genius? I thought I might get... He had the nerve to tell me to keep this to 400 words, which is incredible. You know, for years I've told him, yeah, I'd love to hear you write about that and keep it to 700 words, and he never, ever has. So you want to cap me at 400? Yeah, good luck with that. So I went back and I read a bunch of his op-eds and also his speeches, and it was a real pleasure, first of all. The man has a gift. And rather than try to survey some of them, I picked one, and as it happens, the same speech that the governor mentioned after the Pittsburgh shootings. I thought it might illustrate his writing talent if I just took a little deeper and have some quotes from that. He started by underscoring the feeling of tribal solidarity he felt. Quote, "Jews are a family. You hurt one part of us, the rest of us all feel it. It's a kind of tribal moment. You hurt my people, my community, my family. You hurt me." And then he broadened the lens and pivoted to the darker kind of tribalism that is corrupting America's soul these days. And the words of our president, who he argued was leading that charge. His words, "While this nasty, foul act of anti-Semitism stands on its own, we cannot view it in isolation. We are quite literally in the crosshairs, but so are others. We as a community must take care of ourselves, but we must do our part to take care of everyone assailed by violent bigotry and prejudice. Through our activism, our generosity, our love, the more bridges we build, the less we are alone." Just to think that you were thinking about compassion and love at a moment like that. But to go on, quote, "The question we must pose, was it coincidence that it took place now? My own answer is an unequivocal no. There are no coincidences. This was no coincidence. When the most important, loudest voice in America says that a congressman who assails a journalist, any guy who can do a body slam, he's my kind of guy. When that same voice repeatedly says, lock her up. When the same voice witnessed a massive march of loud, aggressive Nazis chanting blood and soils, Jews will not replace us, says that there are good people on both sides. There is no coincidence." Agree or not, this is courageous stuff, and it's rooted in moral clarity. It's insightful writing that takes the concept of tribalism and shows both how central it is to all of us and how dangerous it is. So here's to you, Cliff. And you may be retired now, but I'll keep you on as free labor at the Star-Ledger. And remember, 700 words. Max.
In consideration of the many very close friends Cliff counts among our congregation, our next speaker's name was literally picked by lottery. Not sure if that means he won or lost, but a member of the search committee which recommended Cliff to our congregation 20 years ago. In response back then to well-meaning comments about Rabbi Coleman's, let's call it a Midwestern naivete, which was mentioned before, a modest J. Mayish proudly explained that it is within our American heartland where the best and brightest of traditions and people originate, only then finding their way to either the West or East Coast, as coincidentally both Jay and Cliff eventually did. A fellow native of Illinois and one of the few of Cliff's synagogue friends who speaks his Midwestern dialect, we welcome Jay to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks, PJ. Set it up for me like that. Ay vey. First of all, I want to thank everybody. I know all of you would like to have the opportunity I have to thank our rabbi. And it was done by lottery. But what BJ doesn't know is the lottery was conducted by Cliff's assistant, Debbie Marin, who I lavishly bribed. And what can I say? You know, I've been working on this speech for a long time. So 20 years ago, the search committee was thrusting about for a rabbi and being very due diligent. We made a long list of job descriptions, and we interviewed people, and then like a resume floats in sideways, I don't know. And we looked at it, and it didn't meet any of our job description requirements. Who is this guy? And he can't even pronounce his name. But we decided, we met in the Greenberg's living room, I think, and in walks your rabbi, and he starts talking. 10 minutes into this, I'm sitting next to David Rocker, who's he's the only person I know more cynical and skeptical than I am. And he goes like this, and he passes me a note, and the note says, 5-1, this is our next rabbi. I said, I won't take the bet. We all fell in love, and the rest is history. We perceived his immediate magnetic goodness. What my grandmother, even in the Mississippi Valley, Iowa and Illinois, used to call a Gita Neshuma, a good soul. And I thought about what makes him so good. And I came up with 4 attributes that he has: patience, compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness. And we've all seen those parts of Rabbi Coleman. He shares that Gita Neshama with his congregation. If it's your simcha, he takes joy in your joy. Genuinely takes joy in your joy. If it's your nachas, he takes pride as you do in that nachas. And if it's surus, he is suffused with empathy. In your time of need, sorrow, sickness. Once again, we have all been touched by his pastoral abilities. And his neshama has marked our life's transitions, our weddings, our births, our b'nai mitzvot, and our burials. And each time he approaches it and he takes you with him with just the right spiritual architecture. It's the only way I can describe it. All that he shared with all of us. And as he shared with us, he also taught us. He taught us music appreciation, monthly book clubs, the weekly parsha, the history through text sessions, giving us an intellectual guide, often to the perplexed, always revealing his insights, never with intellectual arrogance. He brings us the wisdom of the sages and the opinions of the pundits, laying it before us. So he shared with us, he taught us, and he took us. He took us to Israel. Cliff knows that the repetition of liturgy, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand and cleave and all of that, that's nice. But in this day and age, it doesn't strike most people in the heart. We are modern people and we need to experience, and Cliff knew that and knows that. And to make us long for the restoration of Zion, he took us to Israel, knowing that if you take someone to that country, it sells itself. You no longer have to make a speech about it. He took us over and over and over again. How many buses, tour buses, going to the same places did Cliff, and God bless you, Robin. I'll leave it at that. What a wingman or wingwoman or boy wonder Robin or what's the other one? A Wonder Woman. And I will tell you that personal experience. The time Leslie and I took our family, our children, our grandchildren, we got to that overlook. And you see for the first time Yerushalayim in the distance. You stop, you pour a little wine, you say a brucha, you say a shechianu. And at that moment, my grandson, who was a big fan of Cliff's, 15 years old, turns to me and he says, "Papa, I feel like I've come home. Take me now, Rabbeinu Shalom." But you see, he understood that. He understood that if you to instill the love of Israel in the Jewish people, just take them there. And he did. So that's the Jewish wow moment. And finally, he was also our leader. Rabbi Coleman, community leader. You heard it all. I mean, I have nothing to really add to that. He's the political voice. He's an editorialist. And most important, I think, a charitable paragon. He instills tzedakah in all of us by example. Not by exhortation from the pulpit, Never. But by actions that we could emulate and brings out the best in us. Who will ever forget loading that 40-foot trailer that was going to go down south after the hurricane? My back still hurts from that. But, this was just, Cliff Colwin, the ever-ready bunny. If you're in need, he's there. So I only can spend these few minutes. You shared with us, you taught us, you took us, you led us. Dayenu is all I could say about the whole thing. And on a personal note, from one yiddle in the middle to another yiddle in the middle, I love you as my rabbi and my bestie.
Yashkoch, Jay. Yashkoch. Suffice it to say that the apples do not fall far from the tree when it comes to our next speakers. They are bright, they are beautiful, they are accomplished, and so mostly they take after their mother. Our B'nai Abraham family as well takes great pride in their having been raised here within these walls, our spiritual and communal home. We love them, and we hope their dad now gets precisely what he deserves. Molly, Noah, come on up.
I didn't do it.
You're so screwed.
I just wanted to see if it was any different from my bat mitzvah. I think I can stand.
Dad, congratulations on making 20 years. You've touched a lot of lives here and helped build a truly special community.
Every person in this room surely has a story about you. Something incredible you did, some moment of remarkable compassion, a crisis in which you were indispensable.
And we too have stories of you. Temple B'nai Abraham and our family's life in this congregation. After all, there are more than 900 families that belong to this synagogue, thousands of people whose names we all know and who are all dear, dear friends. Of course, there are bound to be quite a few memories of Rabbi Colwin's excellence in action.
For us, as many of you, a lot of these memories involve the phone. When crisis strikes, you need your rabbi. And our dad has always made himself available. Often, when the phone rings, he's lounging, lying down, wearing his signature off-duty look, a t-shirt, ratty shorts, and his black dress socks, while inspecting every page of the Star Ledger or the New Yorker.
The other side of those phone calls, the side we witness, is something special. The true measure of the man is how quickly he snaps into gear, responding with genuine concern, figuring out what he needs to do to be of help, and how quickly he can do it. In 15 minutes, he's out the door, dressed in his Brooks Brothers suit, rabbi's manual in hand, ready to be where he needs.
Frequently, we're asked, what's it like being a rabbi's kid? What's it like when your dad isn't at the synagogue? Does he study the Bible at home? Of course, none of our answers are ever satisfactory. Sure, we go to shul a bunch, but we're all normal people, and our father is the most normal of them all. He loves opera, Jeopardy, calculus, opera, reading Consumer Reports, eating at the same 5 Montclair restaurants, And most recently, texting his children about what he sees on Twitter. The man loves learning, and he wants you to learn with him too.
So here's something you can learn. Nearly every week for 10 months out of the year, our dad has led Shabbat services on Friday nights and Saturday mornings. He's officiated countless weddings and funerals and assisted with hundreds of Devar Torahs. 1,500, I learned tonight. Of course, he's human. He can be tired. He may not want to get out of bed at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. It's totally understandable.
But for 20 years, he has done all this anyway, day in, day out, without fail. And in spite of the very human impulse that tells all of us to stay in bed, to take a break, to let those Jews go without a rabbi just this once, he goes and does his job, and he does it with tremendous love and joy, and none of it is forced. It's all real, more than anything that we have seen from our valued perspective as the rabbi's children. It is the sincere mirth and excitement with which he performs his duties that we have admired most.
Put more simply, the dude inspires through his actions. And given all the opportunities he has afforded the two of us, there's a lot that we have to be thankful for as well. Our trips and extended stays in Israel, for example, have given us lots of contentious political arguments and some excellent Hebrew skills. Mamash toda, Clifford, באמת, you are thinking you are off the hook, but it is not true. At all. Why are you laughing? This is not funny. I don't see joke. I'm not telling joke. So to our father, we say thanks. We can say more later, but we think you probably want us to keep it somewhat short so that everyone else up here has a little bit more time to embarrass you thoroughly.
And to Temple B'nai Abraham, we want to say thanks for the memories, for including us in your hearts and homes. After 20 years, we couldn't ask for a better family, and you can plan on still seeing us around. Tekiya Gadola.
Wow. Under the category of penultimate being the very best, I give you the woman right next to and often way out in front of the man, a real treasure of our synagogue and pillar of our community and too many organizations and philanthropies to name, a woman we love and admire, and in whom we all take great pride as a member of the Temple B'nai Abraham family. Robin, come on up.
So for just a moment, bear with me. Close your eyes. Think that I'm 6'2", perhaps 200 plus pounds. I played football at Stanford, and I have an incredible grin. This is from Cory Booker. I hear that Robin is going to read my remarks. Her southern accent reading my words, which I usually speak with a great deal of Jersey, gives me a little bit of joy to dampen my sorrow at not being there to celebrate my friend Cliff. Cliff, I imagine to you this gathering is a lot like your bris was for you. Uncomfortable as heck, but you were surrounded by a whole lot of people who love you, celebrate you beyond measure, and the food. The food is probably going to be really, really good. Cliff, you are and have been my dear friend for decades. You are a deeply valued advisor, a friend who brings the kind of humor and joy to my life that never lets me take myself too seriously. You were an invaluable ally and inspiration in my efforts to bring justice and opportunity to our state's largest city. You are a spiritual ballast amidst the storms of my personal life and career, and you are a constant light in my life, reminding me, challenging me, and calling on me to let my own light shine. Forgive me for getting all literary, but in one of my favorite books, Their Eyes Were Watching God, by Zora Neale Hurston, she writes, "When God had made the man, he made him out of stuff that sung all the time and glittered all over. Some angels got jealous and chopped him into millions of pieces, but still he glittered and hummed. So they beat him down to nothing but sparks, but each little spark had a shine and a song. So they covered each other one over with mud, and the lonesomeness in the sparks make them hunt for one another. Cliff, you make us all recognize that we are made of the same stuff, that we are all light. You challenge us, that even though this world is broken and covered over in complicated muck that forces try to separate us, that lines divide us, that darkness and discord cloud and clang with seeming relentless determination. You challenge us to be light, seek light, to help, comfort, extend kindness, to do justice, and never stop believing that we can. We must bring people together, bridge the divides, and ultimately, tikkun olam. Thank you, my friend, for decades of wisdom and teaching, for decades of dedication and sacrifice, for an always open heart and outstretched hand. Thank you for your luminescent love. Yasher Koach, Corey. Now it's my turn. 7 years and 1 week ago, we celebrated Cliff's 13th year with B'nai Abraham. It was a lovely evening. Wonderful speakers, great food, good friends, very similar to tonight. I had the honor to speak, and it was memorable for me. I remember agonizing over what to say, or let's be honest here, what not to say. The reviews were good. I didn't cross any lines, didn't jeopardize his employment, because here we are 7 years later. A lot has happened in those 7 years. It's a long time. Memories fade, and not all of you were there that evening. So I thought perhaps I could get away with it just using my remarks from 7 years ago. All right, it was a thought. But I moved on and went straight to agonizing about what I would say. The last time I began with 3 words. I looked at Cliff. Our eyes locked. And I said, "Are you nervous?" Chances are he is not quite as anxious as last time. Let me help you out here, Cliff. It's okay. You can relax. Your retirement will still be as of June 30 and not March 31st. I've got this. Our mantra still holds. Employment is a good thing. I'm going to use my time this evening to share some anecdotes with you, beginning with the time after Cliff had met with the search committee and then meeting with smaller groups of people and individuals. He came home one day and said that the chair of the search committee and some other members would like to meet me. Sure. A date was set, and off I went. My maiden voyage to Livingston. My maiden voyage to Nero's. It was there I met Sandy Greenberg, Merle Kalishman, and Julie Silberman, a past president, a current president, and a future president of TBA. The hours flew by. I returned to Montclair to find Cliff sitting outside on the front steps of our house, clearly anxious. He jumped up and asked, "So how was it? Why were you gone so long?" I said, "Well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is they really, really like you. The bad news, they like me better." The next step was to bring 6-year-old Noah and 5-year-old Molly for a Friday night service. This was not new to them. The kids and I were regular Shabbat service attendees, as Cliff's frequent travels almost always involved him being away on weekends. We arrived, both kids dressed in what Noah then called their important clothes. They sat still through the service, knowing the best was yet to come. You see, at that age, it's really all about after the service, the sweets and other refreshments at the Oneg Shabbat. We met Pearl Lutsky, who coordinated this on behalf of the Sisterhood. Shout out to Sisterhood. And she took Molly and Noah under her wing. Among the brownies and fresh-cut fruit, Molly and Noah were introduced to bow ties, shortbread-like cookies in the shape of, well, a bow tie. But the best was yet to come. Pearl took them into the kitchen and into the biggest walk-in refrigerator either of them had ever seen. And in that refrigerator were boxes and boxes and boxes of Yoo-hoo. Without realizing it, Pearl sealed the deal, and our kids gave a thumbs up to B'nai Abraham. And at the same time, she captured our hearts. So back to Cliff for a minute. This is, after all, about Cliff tonight. He takes the time to listen. He asks questions. He is interested. He's thoughtful. He cares. And he doesn't interrupt your story to tell his. Because Temple B'nai Abraham is your community, and this synagogue a reflection of you and your values. And that takes me back to the kids and Oneg Shabbats. One evening, we noticed Molly sitting with Cy Farber of blessed memory at the Oneg. Cy was perhaps in his late 70s at the time, and whatever he was saying, he clearly had her attention. On the way home, Cliff asked about their conversation, and she said, "Oh, Dad, he is just so interesting." Listening and learning from others, traits that may be part and parcel and come so naturally to Cliff. Temple B'nai Abraham is where our children learn to listen, to ask questions, to learn from and about others. And they also learned how to navigate, well, interesting situations, such as every Yom Kippur, when Florence Harris Strauss, also of blessed memory, who sat in front of us, would come to her seat, always about 20 minutes or so after the service started. She'd get herself settled, she'd look around, she'd rummage in her purse. Remember, this is Yom Kippur. She would turn around, she would see Molly and Noah, hand each of them a Hershey bar. So Cliff likes that we sit in the same place just about every Friday night. Because Cliff and I communicate silently with signals. If he looks up and sees me holding my ear, that means the volume on the mic needs to increase. If he sees me doing this, that means your talus is whopper-jawed. Come on, fix it. If he sees me doing this, it means I'm freezing. And if he sees me do this, it means it's time to wrap it up. Let's move on. I can read his signals well. And one night, I could tell he was righteously annoyed when he noticed that young Molly and Noah, who had been sitting next to me, had disappeared. His body language said, "Robin, seriously, they can't sit for just another 20 minutes? Robin, why didn't they go to the bathroom before the service? Oh, and they both had to go at the same time? Yeah, right." And then I saw his face change when he saw them, sitting in the back row with Jack Oldbaum, who was in a wheelchair. Oh, how they loved him. And they probably fought over who got to sit next to Jack, because there were two of them. Caring, being sensitive, compassionate to others, all things that make Cliff who he is. Temple B'nai Abraham is where my children learn to show that, like their dad, they too care, that they too are sensitive, that they too are aware of those in the world around them, and that just like their dad, they too can make a difference in people's lives. Am I going on too long, or should I stop? Okay, we're good. Often people say they can imagine what it's like to be the rabbi's wife, or maybe that they can't imagine it. With a congregation this large, the assumption is that our phone is always ringing. Nights, weekends. Okay, actually, that's not so. Have there been nights? Have there been times, nights, weekends, when the phone rings? Absolutely, and it should. There is a reason that Cliff's office voicemail message says, "If this is a matter of some urgency, please call my home number, 973-509-2538. I remind you, if he didn't mean it, he wouldn't have said it. No apology needed when you call. In nearly 20 years, I can count on one hand the number of times someone has called, and well, let's just say it didn't really meet the urgency test, and it could have waited until Monday. There was that one time about a dozen plus years ago, and I had just had knee replacement surgery by the best knee guy, Greg Klein. I recommend him, okay? Hips too. And I had just been home for a few days. Cliff took Molly and Noah with him for Friday night services. I was ensconced on the couch, phone on one side, television remote on the other, and I was living better chemically. I felt no pain. The phone rang. Is Rabbi Coleman there? No, it's Friday night. He's gone to services. Oh, are you his wife? Yes. Good, you'll do. She proceeded to tell me about her daughter's bat mitzvah coming up. The daughter had sent the rabbi a draft of her remarks, her Devar Torah about the portion. He had responded with some comments, and she didn't. And at that point, I hear in the background, "Mom, hang up the phone." But no, Mom soldiered on, telling me that her daughter didn't agree with Cliff's response. And I said, "So let me see if I understand this correctly. daughter's bat mitzvah's coming up. She wrote a Devar Torah, and he responded with comments. Yes. And she doesn't like his suggestions. Yes. I said, okay, I get it. But shouldn't your daughter be having this conversation with the rabbi directly? I'm sure he will look forward to hearing from her. And I could have stopped there. But no. Instead, I said, and besides, don't you have a party to plan? Oh my. Since then, I have been very careful and kept my internal editor engaged. So back to Cliff's interests. As I did 7 years ago, I will share with you the books on his nightstand, a biography of Toscanini, the latest Harlan Coben book, always a favorite, Contemplating Music, Challenges to Musicology, an Intro to Botany textbook, the Paris Review, the complete Patrick Melrose novels, the London Review of Books, the Atlantic, Dreyer's English, and I'm happy to say that my personal favorite from 7 years ago, Brain Surgery for Beginners, has been moved to a back shelf somewhere. Perhaps he lack of volunteers for him to practice on. So after Cliff's retirement was announced, and to this day I am asked, how is he handling it? What will he do? Where are you going? How is he handling it? Just fine. What will he do? Well, I'm hoping maybe we'll hear more about that when he speaks in a few minutes. I too am interested. What will you do? I will continue to work. I may add to his nightstand collection how to properly load a dishwasher. There will be a whole chapter on rinsing first. And where are you going? We are not leaving. More time in the Adirondacks? Absolutely. Are we staying in Montclair? Yes, Lisa, we're staying. And of course, Temple Ben Abraham, how could it not continue to be a big part of our lives? Cliff is a wonderful rabbi, and tonight we celebrate. In addition to this rabbi thing, to me, he is just quite simply the best. He is my best friend, the best father, the best husband, and at this moment, I'm going to back on my word, and as someone who cares about the environment, recycle some material I used 7 years ago. Dear Cliff, I have been proud to be your partner on this journey. With all my heart, I look forward to the adventures that lie ahead. And yes, employment has been a good thing. Thank you.
It's a little hard to express my feelings at the moment, but I will try. Wow. Erica Factor, Alana Liebersfeld, Tara Heiderman, your partner in crime, Laura Wold, and all who made this evening possible, thank you. I am genuinely overwhelmed. I want to thank those who spoke, David Myers and Dov Ben Shimon in the last 2 days, and those who spoke tonight, my fellow Midwesterner Jay and Tom and Carlos and John. Thank you for being so kind, and it was a real honor for the Governor and First Lady, the Murphys, to be here. Over these 20 years, I've been privileged to work with some tremendous colleagues. Tracy Bent, Cantor Lee Coopersmith, Rabbi Faith Joy Danterwitz, Cantor Jessica Epstein, Sheila Grossman, Gail Milchman, Janet Resnick, Melissa Weiner, Debbie Ziering, and many others. Each of you has taught me when I needed it. Each of you has been a support when I needed it. Each of you has been patient with me. I'm grateful for it all. I've also been privileged to work with some extraordinary presidents. Muriel Kalishman, Sandy Greenberg, Jeff Roth, B.J. Reesberg, Ed Meinhardt, Julie Silberman, and Bruce Green. On your collective watch, our congregation has flourished. Those of us who spend a lot of time within these walls, who receive a paycheck, we help. But the genuine credit is due to you who wholeheartedly commit so much time, so much energy, so much of your very souls to our common cause of Am Yisrael Chai, that the people of Israel endure. Robin, Molly, Noah, I love you. As King David said, Kosi Revaya, my cup overflows. And by the way, Molly, 2 days early, happy birthday. This bima has seen many rabbis since during the 166 years since Temple Ben Abraham was born. I'm particularly grateful to Rabbi Joachim Prinz, whom I did not know personally, but from whom I continue to learn and continue to be inspired. And my own predecessor, Rabbi Barry Friedman, whose wisdom and impact continue to be felt in every room in this building. And bravo to the committee that selected Rabbi David Weisberg as my own successor. Rabbi Weisberg is smart, warm, learned. He has enthusiasm, vision, and gravitas, and he possesses perhaps that most important quality in a rabbi, a sense of humor. It feels pompous and kind of weird to say that I am confident he will prove a worthy successor to me. I'm so impressed with him that what I really think is that history will judge me as a worthy predecessor to him. Lots of thank yous. But Acharon Chaviv, saving the sweetest for last, I offer the most important thanks of all to you, the community of B'nai Abraham. My gratitude cannot sufficiently be conveyed in words. On Yom Kippur, I told you that 1998 was not a good year for me. My wife and children were doing well in every way that matters, but I was having a pretty terrible year. The professional world was changing, forces beyond my control. I needed a new job. I was bitter. I was depressed. I was scared. And then that lucky phone call from someone I never met, that lucky phone call. Temple B'nai what? Send you a resume? Sure. Come get together with a few of you? Sure. Oh my gosh. That meeting was as Jay described it. I came home from that meeting and I remember my words to Robin. I like these people. And I think they like me. And no, they don't like you better. Now, don't misunderstand. At that session, we discussed our views. We discussed Torah, we discussed Israel, we discussed education, we discussed minhag, many important and substantive and relevant issues, but none of that seemed as important as the connection forged that evening, a connection that, from my side at least, has grown stronger every year. Over the last several days, tonight, I'm sure more later tonight, I've heard lots and lots of wonderful, even effusive words. And by all means, keep them coming. But still, these words make me awkward, make me feel awkward, because it's only half the equation. This is about partnership. If I taught something worthwhile, you were there to listen. If a trip to Israel was transformative, you signed up. If our teenagers made a difference in Newark, you drove. If I was able to be of help to you at a time of need, you let me in. It has been a most satisfying, gratifying collaboration. So what's next? Are you ready? I don't know. I want to help Carlos recruit some bigs. I want to continue to write for Tom and screw that 700-word stuff. John, don't worry, I'll stay off your stage. I'm going to dust off my Portuguese and return to Brazil for occasional service in congregations with no rabbi, but much of it is a work in progress, so stay tuned. Robin, you stole from me yet again. Sometimes someone assumes we're moving, we're not. This is home. To put it mildly, within these walls, my role will change. But right here, right now, there are hundreds of people within these walls to whom I feel so wonderfully and joyfully connected. And what could possibly be better than that? I am a rabbi. For the last 20 years, I've done my best to be your rabbi. My experiences during these 20 years have only increased my respect for the grandeur, the wisdom, the value of our tradition. I still find it leaves me in awe. We are taught to practice respect and compassion, warmth and awareness, a sense of value and worth in every single creature. We are taught to revere our past and have awe for the sacred. We are taught to revel in the myriad blessings that our people has received. That is the spirit of Temple Ben Abraham that greeted me, and that spirit continues to suffuse all we do. Our awareness as Jews of the imperative we have as Jews to leave the world at least a little bit better than we found it. To be part of such a community is one of the greatest honors I will ever know. That lucky phone call. And throughout these 20 years, my luck has only continued. You've shown me generosity and respect. When I've been a little thick, you've been patient with me. When I needed support, you were there. The luck with which I have been blessed is beyond measure. I hope that my actions toward you have conveyed the gratitude that I feel, because that gratitude is truly without measure. Thank you. And now, who's ready for a drink and something to eat? Either those doors or those doors. Let's go. I'm buying.